You look beautiful. I was going to tell you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And my name's Gillian Hepburn. I'm from Schroders, and welcome to the 5th podcast in this series from the Diversity Project and from the Gender Workstream, where we explore a whole range of themes and consider how we can encourage women in particular to join our industry. However, everybody's welcome. Over the last few months, we've looked at celebrating our differences in a number of different ways, and we've considered topics such as how to be yourself at work. What does this actually mean? Is there a stereotypical female within financial services and asset management? And if so, can we be different and accepted? So for anybody looking to join our industry, considering it as a career opportunity, but maybe concerned about fitting in, then can we help a bit today? And for anybody who's interested in the previous podcasts, they're all available on the Diversity Project website and also on Spotify. So this week we continue on the theme of being a bit different and the importance for the industry to continue on a journey towards achieving a more diverse workplace. So how can we drive change, and why would we like you to be part of this? So as usual, I'm joined by two women at very different stages of their career to talk through this with me. As previous podcasts, I'm joined by somebody who works in the industry and somebody who's considering a career in financial services. So I always talk about 30 minutes, two great guests and one really interesting topic. So who's in the virtual studio with me today? Now, normally I do a bit of an introduction, and I thought this month I would mix it up a bit, and I'm going to start by asking the two guests to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their personal journey to date. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by, first of all, by Nicci Take from Mercer's. Nicci, welcome. Do you want to start off by telling us a bit about your background and your journey?
Yeah, sure, happy to. Can you hear me? So normally it highlights me when I speak and it's not. So sorry for being confused. Okay. So my name is Nicci, and I'm head of growth for Mercer Wealth in the UK on an interim basis. As you can probably hear from the voice, I used to be a boy, but I'm okay now, which means I'm trans for those of you that kind of slow to catch up. I've been a sales coach for 30 years. I have my own business, which is called Vincis, and what we do is we help organizations win and get into growth. And I've been on an interim contract with Mercer for the last 2 years. It was supposed to be an 18-month contract, but it feels like I may end up here permanently because we're having so much fun. I guess the most important thing is I have a personal brand. If anybody's remotely interested, I am the corporate drag queen. If you Google corporate drag queen, I'm every photo, every video, every line on Google. And drag, D-R-A-G, which obviously stands for dressed as girl, as opposed to the opposite, which dressed as boy, which is so drab, I'm never doing it again. For me, drag stands for drive rapid accountable growth. And so that's what I do. I come into organizations and I help them figure out how do they morph their businesses into a more customer friendly way so that they drive growth. That's me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. I love that. Thank you very much. I love the drag and the drab. Amazing. Thank you so much. Tony, welcome. Could you give us a little bit about your background as well, and where you are in your journey in financial services?
Thank you. My name is Tony, and from my accent, you can tell that I am not from the UK. I'm actually from Barbados, which is a small country in the Caribbean. And before coming to the UK, I was in entrepreneurship, and I would consult to public and private sector entities in the area of marketing. I decided to come to Cambridge to do my MBA because for the lack of a better term, I felt as if I was a barracuda in a swimming pool. The Caribbean is very small, it's fragmented, and it's hard to really do business on a long-term basis there. And I wanted to really delve into some kind of international business arena. So I came here and I was exposed to a lot that I didn't know before. I'm doing the MBA finance concentration, and I started to get my feet wet with investment management, asset management. And it's something that I definitely want to do as I complete my program within the next 10 days.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Great introduction. So certainly we've got some great guests today, and I'm going to go back to Nicci because Nicci, clearly you're already in financial services, and it sounds like you obviously didn't start in financial services, but you've made a journey through different organisations and lots of stages in your career. From your perspective, where do you think we are with diversity in the industry, and maybe you could share some of your experiences as well.
Yeah, sure. So I'm I've run my own business for 30 years, and that business is helping big organizations win contracts with quarterback sales. And so I've sort of had a view of every industry there is. I've literally solved everything: construction, IT, outsourcing, like you name it. And we've worked all over the world as well, until I took this contract from Mercer. The longest I had been on one time zone were 6 weeks, and then I was always off somewhere else. So I have I think I have quite a broad view, both culturally, geographically, and industry round, the cultures of workplaces. And so I thought it was quite interesting when we were talking the other day, and you said that you've been in the industry for
too long,
and that you've seen great strides and great changes, and that the investment management business is more diverse now than it ever has been. So I don't want to take away from that with my observation. My observation is it's still got a long way to go. Like, it's very, very stale, male, pale, and a lot of the people that I meet in the industry seem to live in a very homogenous bubble. Like, I also have a career as a stand-up comic, and I'll tell you a little story about. I went to give a comedy routine at a friend's birthday in Wiltshire, at a golf club, and of course it was a 50th birthday, and I walked in, and the whole room they were all straight, they were all couples, they all played golf, they were all white, they were all and I had to define LGBT to them, because I delivered my first joke about LGBT, there's this blank look, like these people don't know anybody that doesn't look like them. Their kids go to the same school, they all go to the same church, they all go to the same golf club, they do the same things, they go to the same restaurants, and the same debates. Like, it's all massively homogeneous. So for the avoidance of doubt, like, L stands for lesbian, that's girls who like girls. G stands for gay, that's boys that like boys. B stands for bi, that's those who haven't made their mind up. And T stands for fabulous. Remember that, please. T is fabulous. Which didn't get a laugh there, because I think that's why I had to explain what it really is. Yeah. So you really don't know anybody like me, do you? So I think my observation about the industry is it does feel like it is stuck in the last millennium a bit. And I think the thing that I think most concerns me is I keep having repeated conversations where women's groups tell me that the problem we've got is that our middle tier female management, because we have a lack of female talent in the senior levels, which may just be it's going to grow out. Like, we'll get there eventually. Will mature, but then they keep having this conversation where people say the reason is that our women are not assertive enough, and they don't self-promote enough, and that what we need to do is to provide assertiveness training to our middle management females. And I object to it quite strongly, because I think we're looking at the problem the wrong way. Like, it's not that we need to change women to make them more like men, it's that we need to change organizations so that we need less people to be assertive. Like, if we could rechange the way we think about what it means to be a team player, what it means to be a successful manager, what we would find, like the rest of the world is finding, the solid data to show that women are better managers, and they're better managers because they don't self-promote. They aren't self-assertive. They're not at the front going, looking at me. They're at the back making sure the team are okay and the team are doing the job. So I think what's interesting is, if we're going to change it, we have to change the organizations and the organizations need for people to be more diverse, rather than try and change the people in the organizations.
Yeah, you've raised so many points there. Actually, can I just start with a quick question? Also, you've seen huge number of different types of industries, as you mentioned. Do you think there's any that are good at it in terms of really embracing this?
Top of the list would be the medical profession.
Okay.
I think particularly in gender diversity, I think, and I think if you look classically at the caring professions, because they almost automatically have 50-50 gender balance anyway, then they tend to be much more collaborative and much more coercive and much more kind of female friendly. There are some, like the construction industry is clearly worse. Like it's a male dominated world. Like if you're carrying bricks up and down ladders, then physical strength is important, and so tends to be a bit butch. And obviously anything that requires STEM is kind of lagging behind because of the way we promote those subjects in schools and stuff. So I think it's a mix, Matt. It's a mixture across the I think I think this industry, maybe broaden it to the financial services. Like it feels like it's not bad, but it's not great. Particularly from a gender diversity point of view. But the real issue for me is probably not around gender. It's probably more around race. Like the number of non-white faces that I see in the city are few and far between, and some of that might also be hampered by the fact that the clients are also homogeneous. Like we're classically selling to middle-aged straight white men that've got more money, and we're not selling to the kids in the East End of London. Like we're selling to people in Wiltshire in the golf club.
And that's about everything becoming more diverse, isn't it? Which is a real. You mentioned obviously this is not just about gender, it's about race. Tony, I'm going to come to you, and what's some of your thoughts as somebody thinking about coming into this industry? We're being really honest and having actually challenging conversations here, because we're on a journey, as Nicci said, and has recognised that. But as somebody who's thinking about joining our industry, how does that all make you feel?
Thanks for asking. I do have a family member that says to me all the time, you should have done your MBA 5-6 years ago. And I always believe everything happens for a reason. I have a really tough back, but I do believe, from my observation and from talking to persons within the industry, I think this is the best time that I could have done the MBA. I was doing some research on diversity project. You guys are celebrating 5 years at this point this year. You have things like, I'm here because of 100 Black interns. I don't think 5-7 years ago there were these things. And if we're honest, I think after George Floyd, we had a whole set of organizations realize, listen, this is a problem. Racial diversity is definitely a problem. So I am confident and I'm optimistic. I'm also very aware, however, that there isn't much diversity, and I'm going head first into it. And I do believe I heard someone with the same 100 Black interns say, "Lift as you climb." And if I can get my foot in the door, as I climb, I will also lift persons. So I do believe, yes, but probably 5 years ago it was a lot worse. I don't think that it's perfect now, but I do believe that it's important for persons to get through the door and to, as I said before, lift as they climb.
Yeah. Okay. And Nicci, would you share that optimism as well, in terms of we are where we are at the moment, and the fact that we are broadening our reach, or we think we're broadening our reach. Do you think that do you think we should be optimistic about the future?
Yes, I think my organization is probably a good litmus test. I mean, Mercer is the largest investment manager globally. In the UK, we have as a wealth business, we have revenues of 700 million. We employ 2,500 people in the UK. We're very, the image of Mercer is as a very kind of staid, stalwart, dependable, cornerstone of the financial sector. And here we are in 2021. They hired a trans woman to come in and shake things up a bit. That is a pretty bold, pretty, I think clearly, I have a positive view of this. I think it's a very smart thing for them to do, clearly. But even if I was utterly incompetent, which I think I would have been that quicker if I was. But even if I was completely incompetent, the message this sends to everybody in the company first is really important. We ran a conference, internal conference, this time, or September, and we had 2,000 people attend a conference. And at the end of it, we've got a whole wave of emails, but one in particular sticks out in my mind, of a young, so you're somebody in their 20s who's joined the business 2 to 3 years ago, sent an email to myself and my boss, Benoit Udon, who's the chief executive of Wealth in the UK, saying that seeing me on the leadership team gives them hope that one day they'll be able to come to the business as themselves. And if we can inspire one person to be themselves at work because they're letting me be myself at work, then maybe that can spread. And I think as we start to do more, the company's got comfortable with the idea of me, speaking on behalf of the company. Benoit said to me the other day, like, if we have a customer that is uncomfortable with you, maybe we don't need them as a customer. And I think those little, those seem like little things, but actually I think they're huge steps in the right direction. So yes, I think there's lots of reason to be optimistic, and the industry will be very different in 10 years. I often make a prediction when I'm helping people with their growth strategies. Like, if your board is all straight white, you're dead in 10 years. And if it's all straight white male, you're dead in 5. So this is not a nice to have. It's not a moral imperative. We shouldn't be doing this because it's the right thing. Yes, Black Lives Matter, but that's not the point. The point is, you're an organization is a chicken with its head cut off. It's running around the courtyard. It just doesn't know it's dead yet. If you look at your management team and it all plays golf at the same club, you're dead.
Some fantastic points there. Completely agree. And Tony, what about you on this? We spoke, and we had a little bit of a prep call, which I really enjoyed learning about both of you, obviously. And but we spoke particularly about some of the perceptions and the preconceptions and maybe the biases, and we can come on to this. But you talked about things like your nationality and even just your accent as maybe would that cause a problem or a challenge for you?
Yeah, so I obviously taught different, and I am always very cognizant of, I've been taught by my parents to speak standard English. That's what we speak in Barbados. I mean, we have a dialect, but I recall having a conversation with a friend of mine, a Black Nigerian, and he said to me, and he's also in my class, he said, I think I'm going to have to possibly do a name change or work on my accent. And these are things that persons, I necessarily don't feel that way, but these are things that people think may work against them. I can tell you, coming from the Caribbean, people make certain assumptions. People always assume because it's an island, people come there for vacation. We are known for sun, sea, and sand. People always assume that I'm going to be late for meetings, for Zooms. It's just those very nuanced things that persons always assume. They also assume that if I'm in a position that makes me uncomfortable, the first thing that I will do is the stereotype of the angry Black woman. And that's not my personality, but people do make those assumptions. You do have hurtful comments that people would say or people would assume. But I do believe that you have to fight against that, and it comes with your upbringing. I enter every room as myself. I mean, last night the MBAs booked out a restaurant. It was 3 floors, and it was only later in the night that I realized I'm one of 3 Black people in here, but that's not the situation that everybody has. Everybody doesn't have parents that would say, turn up into the room as yourself. So what do we do? How do we, not lower the standards, but widen the net to hone those persons and to really not just mentor them, but sponsor them. So those are things that you experience, but you have to fight against it. And I believe hard work is a good way to do it, but you can do it on your own.
Sure. Nicci, what about yourself in terms of assumptions that people might have made about you and maybe problems or challenges that caused you in your career?
Well, the first assumption people make is that cross-dressing, like transitioning, is a kink, and it's sort of understandable why people come to that. And I'll give you some stats, and this might be an inappropriate subject for the boardroom, but I think it's important. Trans people represent 0.3% of the population. Trans women, little over half of that. So call it 0.15. That means you need a room full of 600 people to find a woman like me. Well, here's an interesting stat for you. The single biggest kink in heterosexual couples is BDSM, 50 Shades of Grey kind of thing. The second biggest is gender bending. And the stats are in heterosexual couples, 69% of men and 59% of women have fantasized about some kind of gender swapping in the bedroom. Well, what that means is when I walk into that room of 600 people, 400 of them look at me and see me representing their sexual kink. I've had somebody tell me in a professional setting, you shouldn't present as female at work. That's something you do in the bedroom. Well, okay, like just because this is your kink doesn't mean it's mine. Like this isn't a fetish. Like
no.
fetish, then I wouldn't be spending £3,500 on the Bouton bags. I promise you. Well, maybe that is a fetish. I haven't decided. Anyway, the point is there is this tacit assumption that that I'm kinky and I get fetishized all the time. I get things happen to me that don't happen to cis women, or too often, I guess. I mean, only last week, some guy on the DLR at 5 o'clock in the evening handed me his business card and told me he would be prepared to pay for a night with me. And it's like, I'm on my commute to work. Like,
give me a break.
The barrier of what's acceptable to trans women is lower, which is why I always tell people how people treat me isn't a reflection on what they think of trans. How people treat me is a reflection on what they think of femininity. Like they're doing and saying things to me that they think are not acceptable to say to a cis woman, but they can get away with me because clearly it's my fetish and clearly I'll be kind of interested in it. They just think it when they see you. They just say it when they see me. And so I think those assumptions about it are, I have to be guarded against it. There were little things like, I used to think nothing is sitting in the front of an Uber. And now I've had my leg groped so often, I, like every other woman I know, sit in the back. The difference is you'll sit in the back without really understanding. The reason you sit in the back is because you feel a bit safer. Like every woman I know, when I walk down the street, I now cross the street to be in the light. I know why I'm doing it. Lots of my girlfriends have no idea why they cross the street to be in the light. They just do it because they feel a bit safer. Well, I do it because last time I walked down a dark street, I got attacked by some guy in New York. And if I'd been on the other side of the street in the light, I wouldn't have been attacked. So these things are, they're there. Like, these prejudices are there, the people's behaviors are there. They just have learned to hide them. It doesn't stop thinking it and acting on it. So I think we're a litmus test for what society really thinks about women.
And in the workplace then, is it about better education as well as the can we have a more diverse workforce, and can we bring people in that can help with that, which is the purpose of today, is encouraging diversity and women to join us.
I think the most important thing, actually, I have a little analogy for diversity and inclusion, right? So diversity is having all of the ingredients in your fridge to make chicken curry. Like, you get the chicken, you've got the potatoes, you've got the tomatoes, you've got the spice, you've got the salt, you've got the stock, you've got everything you need to make a really, really good chicken curry. Inclusion is inviting Gordon Ramsay around to come and put it together for you. Right. And the really interesting thing about the analogy is the smallest ingredient in that recipe is the salt. But if you don't put salt in your chicken curry, it tastes rubbish. Like, really, really good chicken curry has lots of chicken in it, but it has enough salt to make the chicken taste amazing, right? And that's inclusion, right? Inclusion is that it's having the small little bits. And so we're really good at getting the right people around the table, but then we get, straight white men walking in, doing all the talking, making all the decisions, and walking out, patting themselves on the back, going, "Oh, that was very diverse. Good meeting, guys." No, you didn't shut up long enough to hear other people's opinion. So one of the things we've got to do is to get people who are not diverse to recognize their role is to shut up and listen. And my role as a senior manager often is to come in and tell those people in a very polite, nice way,
Sure.
Shut up. Let's hear what Tony's got to say.
Absolutely.
As the most junior, most kind of interesting person in the room. And then we'll hear the people who've been doing it the same way for 25 years to see if there's anything we can learn. But, and then, my mantra is,
that's okay. It's what you're here.
Do the things you've always done, you get the results you always get. And like, the industry is not going to grow and not going to thrive if we keep doing the same stuff over and over again. And so experience and doing it the same way as we did it 25 years ago, and this is what we used to do, isn't interesting anymore. What's interesting is bringing people like Tony in.
Absolutely.
And listening to her.
Yeah, so on that, we've got a couple of minutes to go. These podcasts always go far too quickly. I'm sure we should make them an hour, because I'm sure we could do a whole other half-hour session. But just before we close off, let's take Nicci's advice. Tony, what would you like to say? Let's hear your voice as we close. What would be some of your messages?
My message would really be, and I think I said it before, which is widen the net. There's so many people that you would be great in your organization that you possibly haven't thought of because you haven't been exposed to them. And to go to Nicci's point, if you socialize at the same places, if you go to school at the same place, you're not going to automatically think of diversity. You're not going to think of someone that's totally different. And sometimes we need to nurture some of those skills that, it's like a diamond in the rough. We need to nurture those and be able to see those, to be able to make them a benefit to the organization. So don't lower your standards, but definitely widening that, because I can tell you, if Cambridge MBA didn't widen their net, I won't be here. I'm on 2 scholarships here to the UK. And if they didn't see it fit to widen their net and to have somebody like me join the school, I think I'm the first woman from the Caribbean to do the MBA. If they didn't do that in 2020, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. So if everybody takes a step to widen the net, but not lower your standards, and look at people who may be different and have something great to contribute, I think that the industry would be a lot better off, as Nicci said, in 5 years. And
that's a great message to end on. Thanks, Tony. Really appreciate that. And congratulations on your achievements as well. Nicci, just before we close, what would be your key message to people listening to this today?
So I think my key message to everybody really is, you only have one life, so live it. And that means, I think, every single day, wake up in the morning, make sure that you're having fun, make sure you're doing something interesting, make sure you're doing something with a purpose, and keep yourself safe. Like, you've got one life, make the most of it. Tomorrow is not promised.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for taking part in this podcast with me today. I've just so enjoyed speaking with you, and also like learning. These podcasts for me, I learn as much as the guests that listen in. But it's really great to explore where we are as an industry, and to hope that we're on a journey and one that supports a diverse range of people and also of women. Thanks to everybody for listening in. No matter what your role is in the industry, or if you're thinking about joining the industry, how can we continue to support and drive positive change? And if you are thinking about joining our industry, then we'll continue to look at how we can move the diversity agenda forward and ensure that we remain and are more inclusive. I don't think it will be perfect overnight, but for anybody listening in and thinking about joining us as a peer, then please think carefully, come on board, because without you, we can't continue to make a difference, and we welcome everybody. So with that in mind, I really hope you all enjoy the holiday weekend. Do join us again on the 25th of June for the next in this series, and our topic will be women and technology. So thank you again to our guests, and have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, bye.
All ours. Thank you so much, Gillian. Bye.
Bye.